Iran signals, fight to the end by choosing new supreme leader. According to Iranian state media, the Assembly of Experts, the clerical body responsible for selecting the country's supreme leader, has voted to appoint Mojtaba Khamenei, the son of the late leader Ali Khamenei, as Iran's new supreme leader. The decision was made following the death of Ali Khamenei amid escalating regional tensions and conflict. Mojtaba Khamenei has long been considered an influential figure within Iran's power structure despite never running in public elections or holding an openly elected political office. For many years, he has operated within the inner circle of the supreme leader and is believed to have close ties with the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, IRGC, one of the most powerful military and political forces in the country. Analysts say the selection of Mojtaba Khamenei could strengthen the position of hardline factions within Iran's leadership. Many experts predict he will continue pursuing a confrontational stance toward the West, particularly as tensions between Iran, the United States, and Israel remain high. The appointment is also widely seen as a signal that Iran's leadership has no intention of backing down under external pressure, while reaffirming the dominance of conservative forces within the country's political system. Iran launches new missile barrage at Israel hours after new supreme leader takes power, according to Iran's state broadcaster, the Islamic Republic of Iran, broadcasting IRIB on March 9th. Iran launched a new wave of missiles toward Israel just hours after Mojtaba Khamenei was chosen as the country's new supreme leader, succeeding his father, Ali Khamenei. IRIB also published images of a missile bearing the message, "By order of His Excellency Mojtaba," while reporting on the attack, signaling a hardline stance from Tehran's new leadership as regional tensions continue to escalate. Meanwhile, the Houthi movement in Yemen congratulated Mojtaba Khamenei on becoming Iran's supreme leader. In a statement posted on Telegram, the group described his appointment as a powerful blow to the enemies of Iran. The statement said, "We congratulate the Islamic Republic of Iran, its leadership, and the Iranian people on the selection of Mojtaba Khamenei as supreme leader at this critical and historic moment." In a separate development, AFP reported on the morning of March 9th that several explosions were heard in Doha, the capital of Qatar, as Gulf countries recorded new attacks amid Iran's expanding retaliation campaign across the region. Since Tehran launched a large-scale retaliation campaign following strikes by the United States and Israel, Doha has repeatedly been targeted by drone and missile attacks. On March 9th, Qatar's Ministry of Defense said its air defense systems intercepted a missile aimed at the country. Meanwhile, the United Arab Emirates UAE Ministry of Defense also reported that its air defense systems were working to intercept incoming missile and drone attacks. Amid rising security concerns, the U.S. State Department ordered non-essential American diplomats and their families to leave Saudi Arabia due to increased security risks. In an interview with the Times of Israel on March 8th, U.S. President Donald Trump said, "The decision on when the conflict with Iran will end would be made after consultations with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu." Trump said, "Iran intended to destroy Israel and everything around it. We coordinated with each other and stopped that." When asked whether he alone would decide when the conflict ends, the U.S. president responded, "It is a joint decision to some extent. We are in discussions. I will make the decision at the appropriate time, and all factors will be taken into consideration." Trump makes surprise statement on timeline for ending conflict with Iran. In a brief phone interview with the Times of Israel on March 8th U.S. time, President Donald Trump said he would discuss with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu the timing for ending the conflict with Iran. However, he emphasized that the United States will ultimately make the final decision. Trump said, "I think it's a consensus to some extent. We have talked about it. I will make the decision at the appropriate time, and all factors will be taken into consideration." When asked about Iran's announcement that Mojtaba Khamenei, the son of the late supreme leader Ali Khamenei, had become Iran's new supreme leader, Trump declined to comment, saying only, "Let's see what happens." Responding to a question about whether Israel would continue its military campaign if the United States stopped its attacks, the U.S. president said he did not believe that would be necessary. In a related development during an interview broadcast on CBS's Face the Nation on March 8th, U.S. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth said Washington and President Trump would set the terms of Iran's surrender, though he did not provide specific details. Previously, President Trump had stated that there would be no agreement with Iran other than unconditional surrender. Hegseth said, "That means we fight to win. We set the terms. There will come a point when they no longer have the ability to continue fighting, and will have no choice but to surrender. According to the U.S. Defense Secretary, surrender could take different forms, including direct negotiations between the parties. However, he stressed that President Donald Trump will ultimately determine the final terms, not Iran. He added that whether Tehran acknowledges it or not, the final decision will rest with Washington. Iran pushes U.S. tactical calculations off course late last month, U.S. President Donald Trump launched a military campaign against Iran with the expectation that it would be a short, decisive operation capable of quickly shaping the outcome of the conflict. However, after several days of the campaign reportedly named Terrifying Fury, the reality on the ground appears to be diverging from Washington's initial calculations. According to an analysis by Asia Times, the United States initially appeared to plan to use overwhelming military power to pressure Tehran into accepting conditions set by Washington. Instead of ending quickly, however, the conflict has expanded to a regional scale and even carries the risk of spreading globally threatening energy markets and shaking geopolitical balances. On February 28th, U.S. and Israeli forces launched major strikes against Iran. Early reports suggested Washington had the upper hand. Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei had died. Iran's command systems and military infrastructure were heavily bombed. Claims emerged that Tehran's missile and air defense capabilities had been severely weakened. According to the U.S. military, the campaign targeted ballistic missile stockpiles, command centers, and Iranian naval assets, and was described as the largest coordinated U.S. military operation since the Iraq War in 2003. However, Iran's response has disrupted many of those predictions. Instead of collapsing Tehran, launched large-scale counterattacks using ballistic missiles, drones, UAVs, and allied forces across the region, including in Lebanon, Iraq, and the Persian Gulf. Tehran reported thousands of casualties and injuries, highlighting the growing humanitarian consequences of the conflict. According to Asia Times, U.S. expectations of a swift strike that would paralyze Iran's leadership did not materialize. Iran's ability to withstand attacks while continuing counterstrikes suggests that its command structure is highly decentralized and resilient. Meanwhile, Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, IRGC, and allied armed groups have continued coordinated attacks on U.S. bases in the region. The conflict is also having serious consequences for the global economy. The Strait of Hormuz, a vital shipping route that carries about 20% of the world's crude oil and large volumes of liquefied natural gas each day, has become almost unsafe for commercial vessels. Oil shipping traffic is believed to have dropped by up to 90% as many tankers are stranded after insurance companies canceled war risk coverage. As a result, global energy prices have surged. Major investment banks such as Goldman Sachs warn that Brent crude could exceed $100 per barrel if disruptions persist. Oil prices have already climbed to around $80 to $90 per barrel, a sharp rise within just a few days. The impact has also spread to financial markets. The Dow Jones Industrial Average has fallen sharply. Some trading sessions have lost more than 450 points. Gasoline prices in the United States have begun to rise. Economists warn that prolonged energy volatility could increase global inflationary pressure, particularly as many economies are still recovering from the COVID-19 pandemic. Economic models suggest that if the Strait of Hormuz were partially blocked for an extended period, global oil supply could fall by several percentage points, potentially pushing Brent crude prices up to $130 per barrel. This would raise transportation, manufacturing, and food costs worldwide, placing particular strain on energy importing economies in Europe and Asia. On the diplomatic front, the war is also straining traditional alliances. Some Arab Gulf states which host U.S. military bases have condemned Iran's attacks, but also fear being drawn into a broader conflict. Meanwhile, Iranian leaders have warned European countries not to intervene, threatening retaliation if they support military escalation. Another complicating factor is great power rivalry. U.S. media reports suggest that Russia may have shared intelligence with Iran regarding U.S. military positions, which could complicate Washington's operations. Russia has not commented on the reports, but previously stated that Tehran had not requested direct military support from Moscow. Within the United States, the prospect of a prolonged war with Iran is also causing concern within the Republican Party, especially as the midterm elections approach. According to Asia Times, current developments suggest that the conflict shows no signs of cooling down and is gradually turning into a prolonged multidimensional crisis. Iran's resilience in the face of strikes aimed at eliminating top leadership indicates that Washington's initial plan may have gone off course. Instead of a quick victory campaign, the war is creating new military, economic, and geopolitical challenges for the United States in the period ahead. On March 8th, Iran's Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi said that Russia is assisting Iran in various ways as the conflict between Iran, the United States, and Israel continues to escalate. Speaking on NBC News' Meet the Press, Araghchi emphasized that military cooperation between Iran and Russia is not new. He stated military cooperation between Iran and Russia is not a secret. It existed in the past, continues today, and will continue in the future. The senior Iranian diplomat also described the relationship between Tehran and Moscow as a very good partnership. Host Kristen Welker then asked directly whether Russia was providing intelligence to Iran amid reports suggesting that Moscow may have shared military data with Tehran since the conflict began. In response, Araghchi neither confirmed nor denied the claim. He said only, "They are helping us in different directions." He added that he did not have detailed information about the exact level of support. These remarks immediately fueled speculation about Russia's behind-the-scenes role in the Middle East conflict. However, the United States appeared largely unconcerned by the possibility. When asked about potential Russian involvement in the war during an event at the White House, U.S. President Donald Trump dismissed the question. After a Fox News reporter raised the possibility of Moscow assisting Tehran, Trump replied, "That's a ridiculous question at this time." Meanwhile, U.S. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth offered a similar response when asked about reports that Russia had provided Iran with information about U.S. military bases. He told CBS News, "No one is putting us in danger. Our job is to put our adversaries in danger." Earlier, shortly after the United States and Israel carried out joint airstrikes against Iran last week, Russia strongly condemned the military operation. Russian officials described the strikes as a premeditated and unprovoked act of armed aggression against a sovereign state and a member of the United Nations. Meanwhile, Iran continues to reject calls for a ceasefire from the international community. Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi argued that, before discussing a ceasefire, the United States and Israel must first explain why they launched the airstrike campaign. He said, "This was an unprovoked and unjustified attack. No one wants the war to continue. This is not a war we wanted." The conflict between Iran, the United States, and Israel has now entered its second week and shows signs of expanding across the wider region, raising concerns about the emergence of new alliances behind the front lines. In this context, Iran's public acknowledgement of support from Russia, though still unclear in scope, is making the geopolitical landscape surrounding the Middle East conflict increasingly complex and unpredictable. Reports suggest Iran is holding back hypersonic missiles until U.S. defense systems are depleted. In an interview with the Russian newspaper Paramenskaya Gazeta, Igor Korochenko, director of the Center for Analysis of World Arms Trade, suggested that Iran still possesses a significant number of hypersonic missiles, but has not yet used them in the early phase of the conflict. According to Korochenko, these missiles are being reserved as a trump card to be deployed only after weaker missile systems have gradually worn down the enemy's air defense networks. He noted that Iran's current arsenal largely consists of older generation missiles that have proven effective with a wide range of strike capabilities. Korochenko said Iran's current military strategy focuses on tactical missile strikes and kamikaze drones, including the Shahed 136. The analyst added that Iranian command has established a decentralized operational command structure while also developing a network of missile bases and weapons storage facilities located underground or within mountainous terrain. According to his assessment, this arrangement allows Iran to maintain its strike capabilities even under continuous airstrikes, although the advantage in resources and air power still belongs to the United States and Israel. Korochenko believes the next phase of the conflict could unfold within the next 3 to 4 weeks. During this period, U.S. and Israeli interceptor missile stockpiles could face significant pressure if the attacks continue at a sustained pace. He argued that Iran's strategy is not to achieve absolute military victory, but rather to make the war costly and inefficient for Western powers, forcing them to reconsider the overall cost of the conflict. However, implementing such a strategy requires Iran to maintain its missile forces, which may prove difficult as the United States and Israel intensify airstrikes targeting Tehran's military facilities. Some assessments suggest that Iran may already be running low on missiles before U.S. and Israeli defense systems become overwhelmed. According to battlefield data, the number of cruise missile, ballistic missile, and UAV launches by Iran has dropped to roughly 10% of the levels seen at the beginning of the conflict. Meanwhile, U.S. and Israeli interceptor missile stockpiles may not run out soon, as Washington could draw on supplies from allies and accelerate emergency production of missile defense systems. Washington responds to claims that Iran captured U.S. soldiers. Recently, Ali Shamkhani, Secretary of Iran's Supreme National Security Council, claimed that Iran had captured several U.S. soldiers since the conflict between Tehran, the United States, and Israel erupted. Posting on the social media platform X, Shamkhani alleged that Washington was hiding information about American troops taken prisoner. He wrote, "I have received reports that several U.S. soldiers have been taken prisoner, but the United States claims they were killed in combat. Despite all efforts, the truth cannot be hidden forever." The U.S. military quickly rejected the claim. U.S. Navy Captain Jim Horn described the statement as part of a disinformation campaign intended to influence public opinion. He said, "They are trying to spread inaccurate information and mislead the public. This is just another clear example." A spokesperson for U.S. Central Command CENTCOM reiterated this position in a statement to the media, stressing that Iran's claims about capturing U.S. soldiers are false. Meanwhile, the Associated Press AP cited an unnamed U.S. official who said that one American soldier died after suffering severe injuries during an Iranian attack targeting U.S. forces stationed in Saudi Arabia. According to CENTCOM, the soldier was critically wounded during the attack that occurred on March 1st. With this confirmation reported by the Associated Press, the total number of U.S. soldiers killed in the conflict with Iran has risen to 7. Earlier, 6 soldiers from the U.S. Army Reserve soldiers were killed in another attack on a U.S. base in the Middle East, also on March 1st. As the conflict continues to escalate, U.S. President Donald Trump has not ruled out the possibility of deploying American troops to Iran in the near future. Trump and U.S. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth have also warned that the number of American casualties could continue to rise if the conflict drags on. According to some assessments from Washington, the war could last around 4 to 5 weeks before reaching a significant turning point.